Good morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join me for our gathering hymn, our warm-up hymn, number 30 in the gray hymnal, Over My Head. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear gladness in the air. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I hear gladness in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I see angels in the air. Over my head, I see angels in the air. Over my head, I see angels in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to this Sunday service of the Inner River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Durham, North Carolina. My name is Reverend Daniel Trollinger, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race or gender identity, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I forgot to take off my mask to speak. If you are new to this community, or if you're visiting with us today, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, or if you're watching on the live stream, introduce yourself in the chat so we may give you a proper ERUF welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend your Sunday morning with us. If you have children with you or youth, you're invited to join one of our religious education classes as you are sung out with the time of all ages. We also invite you, if you're visiting, to the Inquirers class in the care building next door that begins right after the service. Today's music is provided by the Beloved Community Chorus. Wendy Looker is our cantor. Kate Lewis over there is our pianist. Lisa Jones is our worship associate. Michelle Sager and King Sage are our tech team, and Steve Daniel and Scott Gaskins on sound. This week, ERUF continues to serve as an early voting site for Durham County. On Wednesday, October 26th at 6:30 in the Commons Room, the Stewardship Steering Team is offering a class on estate planning and more. Please see the ERUF website for more information on this and other programming. There's a lot going on here. We'd love for you to participate in. Right now would be a good time to turn off any devices or place on worship mode. And let us center ourselves. And let us begin worship.
We are the ones, we've been waiting. 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 We've been waiting for. We are the ones. 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 We've been waiting for.
Our opening words today are by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. We gather together here now, summoning our courage to be. We gather bringing our weariness and our energy. We gather bringing our weariness and our visions. Like trees in rocky places, our roots clutch. What we find in each other, or what we find is each other. What we find is each other holding tightly. Courage is not certitude. Courage is not assurance. Courage is the willingness to join in the attempt, to join in the unlikely, even the impossible. Courage is a choice. Courage is a way of knowing. Courage is a way of joining together. Courage is knowing that together we will do what none of us can do alone.
And Reverend Gretchen Haley writes, there is a quiet courage in the choice to let go of the past and the choice to be present in this new day, to live for this hour, this moment, and to believe in its possibility, to release the regrets, to stop the spinning stories of what was and is no longer, to accept this gift, to believe that we are worthy still of happiness, of ease, of delight and hope, to believe we have all we need to heal already, and to receive this wholeness with ready hearts and open hands, saying only thank you. Come, Let us practice this surrender together, gathering up all the brave boldness we know can be found in our bones and blood if we will breathe together, knowing ourselves a part of this one life filled with mystery, creativity, and power, changing us, growing us, and calling us into partnership with all that is. Come, let us worship together. May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us. These chalice lighting words by Betts Weinecke. And so now let us sing together. Please rise in body or spirit, and we will sing hymn number 1020, Wo Ya Ya, and that will be in your teal hymnal if you need the music. Otherwise, the words will be on the screen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya.
Good morning. Good morning. So much greeting and connecting and peopling out there. I want to invite our children and our youth and our young at heart to come on down for our time of all ages. It's okay, be brave. Be courageous. Oh, excellent. Very courageous. Love it, love it, love it. Excellent. Welcome. Gathering around, good to see you. I'm always amazed at the new mask designs. I love it. I love it. It makes me think I need to get some sparkly ones of my own. And coming down, coming down. A few more people. As you're coming down, I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes when I tell a story up here, I get to be silly and goofy, right? Sometimes that's what you get used to. Today is not a silly and goofy story. It's actually a pretty serious story. And it's a serious story that sometimes is happy serious and is sometimes sad serious and is sometimes many places in between on that seriousness. So, and it's serious because we're giving respect to some people. So, you know, we want to honor them. We want to say yes. And this story is by Kwame Alexander. And Kwame Alexander is a dad. And he's black and he lives in the United States. And this story is a poem, and it was originally written by Kwame as a poem for his daughter, Samaya. And this is something he wrote about it. This is also kind of for the adults out there, so you kind of get why he wrote this poem. I wrote a poem about black Olympians such as Jesse Owens and Wilma Rudolph undermining the false narrative of white superiority by racing to gold in front of the whole world. About Malcolm X urging blacks to fight for freedom, justice, and equality, no matter the method or the cost. About enslaved Africans pushing on with an unwavering fighting spirit of hope and faith. Faith that one day they would be free, or that their children, or that their children's children would become the masters of their own destinies. About Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and the Harlem Renaissance. About cultural expression and liberation and the Black arts movement. About Dr. King's acceptance speech for the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize. About a promised land without racial injustice, poverty, and war. There we go. About civil rights marchers chanting, "We shall overcome," and demonstrating across the South. About Jack Johnson and Muhammad Ali, and I'll tell you, all these names are saying are people in here, so we're going to see all of them. They're boxing racial prejudice in and out of the ring. About black Civil War soldiers saving a union that refused to see them as equals. About Black Lives Matter. About Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter because we are Americans, because we are human beings. And this is the final thing that Kwame says. But mostly I wrote a poem to remind my daughter Samaya and her friends and her family and all of you, and to remind myself to never ever give up. Because as Maya Angelou wrote, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. It may even be necessary to encounter the defeat so that we can know who we are, so that we can see, oh, that happened, and I rose. I did get knocked down flat in front of the whole world, and I rose. Keep rising. So there's a lot of experiences in this book, and some of them are experiences that people in this room have had, and some of them might not be an experience you've had, but somebody else here might have had. So let's start. And this is Jesse Owens. This is for the unforgettable, the swift and sweet ones who hurdled history and opened a world of possible. I will say that I have never gotten to be courageous in that way. The ones who survived America by any means necessary. From the close, I would say this is a family from a long time ago, right? Yeah. And the ones who didn't. This is a sad page. A sad but courageous page. This is for the undeniable, the ones who scored with chains on one hand and faith in the other. This is for the unflappable, the sophisticated ones who box adversity and tackle vision. Who shine their light for the world to see and don't stop till the break of dawn. I see Zora Neale Hurston here, and Langston Hughes, and many other Black writers and artists. This is for the unafraid, the audacious ones who carried the red, white, and weary blues on the battlefield to save an imperfect union. John Lewis. The righteous marching ones who sang, "We shall not be moved," because Black Lives Matter. Another very sad page. This is for the unspeakable. Something's unspeakable, it means it's pretty bad. It's very, very hard. This is for the unspeakable. Also another very hard page, and something you may learn about someday. Something very sad that happened in Birmingham. This is for the unspeakable. Thinking about Michael Brown and Tamir Rice and many others. And now we have a serious page that is both happy and sad. This is for the unlimited, unstoppable ones, the dreamers and doers who swim across the big sea of our imagination and show us the majestic shores of the promised land. Many athletes, the Wilma Rudolphs, the Muhammad Alis, the Althea Gibsons, the Jesse Owenses, the Jordans and the LeBrons, the Serenas and the Cheryls, the Reese Whitleys and the undiscovered, the people we don't know yet. This is for the unbelievable, the we real cool ones. This is for the unbending, the black as the night is beautiful ones. Like Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, a bunch of people who play and sing music and write music. This is for the underdogs and the uncertain, the unspoken, but no longer untitled. And in Kwame's words, this is for the undefeated. This is for you, and you, and you. This is for us. Thank you, Kwame Alexander. Thank you for the courage that he brings to his daughter, and the courage that we get to respect today. And on that note, I'm going to invite us to proceed toward our classes. And I get to proceed with you today.
Mahatma Gandhi said, "To be the change you wish to see in the world." Sounds easy enough, right? But if you're anything like me, that just opens the door to more issues than I could hope to change in a couple of lifetimes. While some may be able to take Gandhi's words at face value and move along, I, in my true UU fashion, am overcome with more questions than answers. Instead of going, I get it. There's the answer. I begin to think, what exactly did he mean change? then which change should I address? Did he have any idea how many changes someone like me might want to see in the world? Maybe I should choose a small change and work my way up so I'm not doing any harm while I make this one. Then ultimately, oh boy, which person or group is going to get upset if I initiate this change? Therein lies my need for courage. It was in an upstate New York rehabilitation center in 1994 where I truly heard Reinhold Niebuhr's Serenity Prayer for the first time. The solicitation for serenity to accept the things that I could not change, courage to change the things I could, and the wisdom to know the difference resonated so deeply within me that I had the words wisdom and courage tattooed on my arm. Having this everyday reminder to seek wisdom and courage has been a great prompt to make the hard choices each day to confront oppressive actions, stand up against tyranny, and dance to the beat of my own ancestral drums. But what about when I feel the change is needed among those who share my history? When I see changes that must occur within the masses of the historically oppressed, as well as that within those who carry the blood of those who did the oppressing. Dare I say, that is when courage tends to elude me the most. A united struggle for all of us within liberal religion is the conundrum of when to call out our own. When do we violate those unwritten laws of culture that state we are never to say certain things in public, despite feeling it within our gut, lest we be seen as turncoats or traitors to our own races? As Unitarian Universalists, we commit to exercising that courage and being that change, to speaking truth to not only corporate and religious power, but to those who have power over the personal peace we experience within our lives. Many of us have experienced the sting of exercising that level of courage as the world fights us to hold on to antiquated ideologies that leave many of our fellow humans in the position to fight for simple acknowledgement as worthy beings. But we cannot give up. I am of the mindset that when we look at those who look like us and attempt to effectuate change from within our ranks, we are actually looking more deeply inside ourselves and recognizing that we can all do things better, kinder, in a more loving way. And we can do it with greater understanding. In the introduction to Martin Luther King Jr.'s Strength to Love, Coretta Scott King wrote, "Love, truth, and courage to do what is right should be our own guideposts on this lifelong journey." May we embrace and exercise the courage to be the change on that journey. May it be so. Amen.
Please join me now in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we lift up our joys and concerns this morning. We hold in our hearts all those who are living in fear, that they may know safety and support. We hold in our hearts all here and all the world over who are marginalized, who are in crisis, and who may be dealing with illness or grief. We hold in our hearts Denise Frizzell and Beverly Wetta, who mourn the loss and celebrate the life of Denise's beloved Aunt Marion, who died peacefully on October 12th, encircled by family after a battle with ALS. And we also lift up our joys. We hold in our hearts Christy and Dave Chilton, who celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary last week. They were married at Eruff by Arvid Straube in 2002 and are so happy to still be part of this community. We hold in our hearts Julie Edmonds and Sarah Terry, who are mostly thrilled and also a bit nervous for their son Sam, who left on October 21st for a 2-year stint in the Peace Corps in Cambodia. Please keep him in your thoughts as he carries Eruff's values on his travels. We open now with a spirit of gratitude to welcome the gifts of this day and the joy of being in community. May we always work to offer a place of belonging for all who come in gladness or in pain, to feel a part of something greater. May we move through our week holding one another, knowing we are not alone, resisting the urge to rush to the next moment and the next, to slow down, to breathe more deeply, to pause and be here now, to be present, to give and receive the gift of presence. May we choose to live our precious life with courage and kindness, allowing the light of our own true being to shine regardless of what we face or feel, regardless of what life throws at us. May we embody courage to be that light, courage to share the light of compassion, courage to answer the call of love. As we prepare now for a moment of silent meditation, may we rest in our hearts, embracing compassion and courage, and breathe in the silence together. And so it is. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me?
The first book I consciously recall my mother reading to me as a child was the Grimm brothers' fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel. I was quite young, not yet in school, and I have the very strong memory of sitting next to my mother and eagerly looking at the pages as she, with great animation, read the story, with me trying to decipher the words. What joy and delight it all brought me. My mother was so good at acting out the story that I wanted nothing more than to be able to read as well. The story also filled me with fear. It was called a fairy tale, and yet my little girl self sensed that something seemed a bit off about it. For those of you who need a refresher or may not have grown up where such Western European tales were told, the story is basically that of two young children during a time of famine whose impoverished parents tricked them into being abandoned in the forest. The starving children eventually come upon an old woman in the forest who lives in a tantalizingly delicious, edible gingerbread house created solely to lure children in so that she could eat them. And though she attempts this with Hansel and Gretel, they instead eventually kill her. And I have to say that to this day, I have absolutely no love of gingerbread houses. I recall thinking at the time that these children were quite brave to wander in the forest in the dark after being abandoned by their parents, and braver still to overcome the wicked woman who attempted to kill them. Their courage earned them victory, though I must add here that feminists have taken great issue with the depiction of the female characters in this tale. As a child, none of this was a consolation for me, as I detected no sense of what I imagined to be a fairy in these tales. Though grown-ups treated these stories as if they were benign accounts of courage and adventure, they gave me nightmares. I mean, literally. I didn't get it because it was quite horrific to imagine children like myself in such situations. Poverty, starvation, untrustworthy adults, abandonment, enslavement, cannibalism, murder. It is said that the Grimm fairy tales, which were indeed quite grim, no pun intended, supposedly arose out of a desire to prepare children for the difficulties and threats of life. Threats ultimately rooted in trauma experienced by Europeans, though the brothers Grimm say that their tales were never intended for children. In the case of Hansel and Gretel, there is an historical famine that actually did strike Europe in the early 14th century that resulted in the very real traumas of infanticide and cannibalism. Resmaa Menakem, trauma therapist and author of the book My Grandmother's Hands, contends that it is unresolved trauma such as this and the brutality of other oppressions that Europeans brought with them as they colonized people of color communities around the world. It is interesting to note that the word courageous, as we most often use it today, implying a firmness of mind and will in the face of danger or extreme difficulty, came about in 14th century Europe. Though it is true that other traditions have also held courage to be a virtue. I find it especially interesting that the Tao Te Ching, the core text of Taoism, written around 400 BC, says that courage is derived from love. Psychologists have determined that there are 4 necessary components of people's ideas of courage. They are intentionality and deliberation, personal fear, noble or good acts, and personal risk. With these 4 components, several researchers defined courage as a willful, intentional act executed after mindful deliberation involving objective, substantial risk to the actor, primarily motivated to bring about a noble, good, or worthy end, despite, perhaps, the presence of the emotion fear. Though I have never consciously considered courage to be a virtue to pursue, I have held it as a personal value for as long as I can remember from my youngest days. There have been moments when I have needed to move through great personal fear and have called myself to be courageous in order to do so. Though I can identify components of courage named by these researchers in some of my acts over time, I do believe that I, as do most of us, express our courage in a much more simplified, everyday way. It takes courage to apologize, and great courage to forgive somebody and forgive them again, and forgive them again, because forgiveness takes a lot of time and courage. It takes courage to live with our whole hearts and as one who is intentionally wide awake in a challenging and often fearsome world, as the world has mostly always been for most humans throughout time. It takes courage to open one's heart to friendship and love, or to embrace ourselves as worthy of the same. It takes courage to face our pain, to admit one's mistakes and failings, to not give up, but to keep trying, to begin yet again. The researcher Brené Brown says, I cannot find a single example of courage, moral courage, spiritual courage, leadership courage, relational courage, that was not born completely of vulnerability. And it takes courage to be vulnerable. We each have stories of courage, the kind of courage that allows us to make it through a day, as well as acts of heroism, whether our own or that of others whose courageous acts ultimately loved us here, landed us here. And so I want to share with you now the story of 2 other children who I unabashedly dub beautiful black girls. It begins with this image, and that I chose to illustrate today's service. King, would you pull up the image now? It is probably an image that many of you are familiar with, that of 6-year-old Ruby Bridges in as she integrated in an all-white school in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1960, to so much hatred. She had to be escorted to school by federal marshals for an entire year. Norman Rockwell, the painter who had been known for his many images on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post of what was considered an idyllic American life, which appeared, had moved on to a new job at Look magazine, and this was his first assignment. An aspect of American life that was not idyllic. He named the painting The Problem We All Live With. Some of you may have realized that what you saw in that image is not the actual full image. I decided to show an edited version because the full image most fully displays a Black child's trauma. I recognize that it could further induce trauma among some of us viewing it, in the full recognition that it was no fairy tale. And so after consultation with various Black people in this congregation, a group who, as I expected, did not share a monolithic view, I decided that rather than to not show this image at all, I would show a version that in some respect represents a bit of a compromise, not minimizing nor sensationalizing a Black child's trauma. Thank you, King. When I first saw the full image version of this image, it took my breath away. I felt as though I saw an image of myself for the first time, because I am the second beautiful Black girl in this story. As I, too, was a child who had desegregated a school, though years after Ruby Bridges, and I was but 7 years old. It took me a good portion of my young adult life to fully process how traumatic that event had been for me. And in Brooklyn, New York, we did not have an entire community rallying to our side to help us face the angry mobs. In fact, we children, nor our parents, realized there would be mobs. No one warned us. I am certain my parents thought, this is, after all, New York, not the Jim Crow South from which they'd fled. My parents never held the intention that they were sacrificing me on an altar of courage. No one ever asked me to be brave. I simply understood in my childlike way that I needed to be, to survive and to have what I most wanted, which was simply the right to a decent public education, and the sense that children who came after me might have it easier. I don't know where I got that latter notion from. Perhaps it was the tenor of the times, but it is one that I held inside my big, young heart. I knew that as I walked off that school bus every day, I did not want any other children to need to experience what I and my classmates were contending with, though we eventually outlasted those adults who spewed their hate as we walked into the school building each morning. It wasn't until I became a mother myself, looking upon my 7-year-old son, who I was able to raise in ways quite different than I had been raised, that I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want my children to feel the need to be courageous as I had felt at their very young age. That was the business of grown-ups. I realized what an impossible thing Ruby Bridges had been expected to do alone. What an impossible thing that had been required of me and my classmates just to receive a decent public school education. I wanted for my children the courage of simple, everyday things of childhood. And yet, as they grew up in the interracial neighborhood of Park Slope, where one neighbor joked that my sons were the mayors of the block we lived on, I began to realize as they grew in body, from small children to black boyhood, adolescence, and then into the men they are today, they were going to need courage all their own to be in this world, to continue. So I want to say that I do believe it's important that you view Rockwell's full image, and I invite you to find it on your own. Google makes it quite easy. And I invite you to look, not for voyeurism, shame, or blame, nor to merely turn away annoyed at being made uncomfortable for a brief moment in time, or merely disassociating, relieved that this is not your life or that of your children or grandchildren, as though the trauma of this story does not belong to us all, no matter what color our bodies are. I want you to look at the full image and perhaps even meditate upon it in the privacy of your life. Perhaps write a reflection and consider what it calls you or your children to today. That to even begin to consider how we might all heal, it requires our courage to, as writer Ta-Nehisi Coates says, never look away from this. And if you might still need an example of why this might be necessary today in 2022, the Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson, Executive Director of the UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina, contacted UU ministers from around the state to let us know about a situation in Columbus County where Sheriff Jody Green had been removed from office after going on a racist rant that included his intentions to fire every black employee in his sheriff's department. And he started doing that. Sheriff Green has clear ties to the Oath Keepers and holds an incredible amount of power in that county. 3 weeks ago, during a community meeting about Sheriff Green at a local church, 12 law enforcement vehicles surrounded the building to intimidate those within. Thankfully, everyone was eventually able to leave safely. Unfortunately, local Columbus County leaders anticipate that this could happen again this coming Monday at a community meeting being held after Sheriff Green's court hearing, and that things could possibly escalate and pose an even greater safety threat. And so partners in Columbus County have asked UU clergy if we could offer assistance by remaining outside the church during the meeting to be on lookout for law enforcement officers or others who may show up to intimidate those who have gathered. It's generally recognized that clergy presence can play an important role in creating a sense of safety and de-escalating a tense situation. Being courageous is the call of everyday things. Being courageous is the call of love and care. Being courageous is the call of moving beyond comfort for some of us and embracing comfort for others of us on behalf of something larger than ourselves. Being courageous is saying, no, I'll do that because you should not have to. And being courageous is, I won't do that because I should not have to. Being courageous means to not look or turn away. May we be courageous, my friends. And so I want to invite us all to honor our own acts of courage, because I know you have some. I know you've lived into some, or you have people in your life who have been courageous. And what I want to invite us to do is to offer, we have two stations here with stones in them, and they're stones because courage is sometimes hard, right? And so I invite you, if you are interested and willing, to come forward and place a stone in the water to honor your courage, or perhaps the courage of someone you know and love. And so we will start from the back of the sanctuary, come down these side aisles, and go up the front. And Kate will play some music for us. Amen. And ashe, ashe, and ashe. Each week we gather together bringing our gifts in order to create beloved community together. And so as our greeters come forward, we invite you to participate in this morning's offering. And you may do so in multiple ways. If you do not have cash on hand or a check on hand, you can go to eref.org and hit give and give that way on your device. And if that's difficult and you can't figure that out, please feel free to come into the office after the service and they will help you with that. And our beloved community chorus will now offer the prelude.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In
And so we give thanks. We give thanks for our courage. We give thanks for those who have been in our lives and been courageous. We give thanks for this day. We give thanks that we get to be in community together, co-creating together. And we give thanks for all of the gifts of this beloved community. And so we will have our final hymn this morning. It is Amazing Grace, number 205 in the gray hymnal, or you can see the words on the screen. And Wendy will lead us.
Please rise and bow to your spirit. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun.
Our closing words today are from Cornell West, who says we need the courage to question the powers that be, the courage to be impatient with evil and patient with people, the courage to fight for social justice. In many instances, we will be stepping out on nothing and just hoping to land on something. But that's the struggle. To live is to wrestle with despair, yet never allow despair to have the last word. May it be so, my friends. Go in love, go in peace, and go in courage. Namaste.